It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. This is Rubbin Minds. Welcome. My name is Abuja Obiuchendu. Thanks a lot for joining us. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Of course, security, or the lack of it, is going to be one of our talking points as we get along on the show today. So much has happened in the country, whether you're talking about the East, the North, the South, or the West. Unfortunately, Kaduna State has been the most prominent in the news with regards to what's happened there, especially with the trains. Of course, our condolences go out to all the families of those, especially those who lost lives and those who are still not found. We're just hopefully trying to piece things together and get the appropriate response as we go forward from the federal government. But we're going to be talking about security a little later. Starting off the show now, talking about youth engagement in politics. And I have here with me Okpeyemi, who's the convener, Emerging Leaders Summit. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Buka, for having me.
Yeah, I mean, security is one of the main things that will obviously be a talking point with the elections coming. Unfortunately, it has been a talking point in every election that we've had since 1999. What are we talking about? The Niger Delta, which seemed to be the talking point for about a decade. Then Boko Haram took over. And now it seems like every corner of the country has an issue. And people tend to put that argument that a lot of these issues are too complex for young people to tackle. Are there ways you see young people coming into the narrative to show, or I don't know, that they can tackle this head on? Because nobody seems to have any answers as it is anymore. We seem to be talking about candidates running for office, and all we hear are what zone you come from as against what you plan on doing to tackle these things. Do you think this is an issue that young people can fix?
Definitely. I believe that young people can fix it. Now, if you look at it predominantly, the people that are involved in these activities, be it Boko Haram, be it the Niger Delta War, be it the bandits, they are young people. I don't want to believe that a 60, 70-year-old person, they could be part of the people but people on at the forefront of this insecurity are actually young people. So, however, what I'm saying, what is critical is that a lot of young people feel disenfranchised. They feel marginalized, and we are just, expressing our frustration in the wrong ways. So, nobody will fix it better than young people. And that's why we are clamoring for young people's participation in politics, especially in policy making. Because if we are involved in policy making, we can tackle, the issue of exclusion. We can tackle policy making that can actually facilitate empowerment and growth for young people. We can facilitate, development projects. Socioeconomic factors can come in. We can talk about gender equality. We can implement policies that can be more inclusive, especially economically. When we have a lot of young people more involved or more included in the economic plan of Nigeria, and we have a lot of them having sustainable, dignifying sources of income, busy, and they have an enabling environment where their dreams and visions can actually come true, I believe that we're going to have reduced, involvement of young people in wrongdoings, and of course, most of these activities, banditry, Boko Haram, and whatever it is, insurgency and insecurity. So I believe that young people are actually hands-on, and the time is now for us to actually get involved at every level possible. And I know that, of course, in the past weeks, in past months, past years, we have, coalitions of young people coming together to say, how do we tackle this? Northern youths are coming together to say, how do we help our people? But the truth of the matter remains that if you don't have the political power, if we are not in the place where we can make policy and make decisions, there is little or nothing we can do to actually change the narrative.
So still talking about young people getting involved, one of the most prominent things I hear young people say is that, they don't believe in zoning. There's almost a consensus among young people that, merit should be the criteria for electing, especially executive offices like the presidency or governorship or whatever. Why should it be any zone's turn? Why doesn't the best person for the job, take it? I always hear people say, I don't care where the person is from as long as you can fix Nigeria.
Right.
How do you sort of reconcile that with the argument also from people who say, why then do young people want a quota or space made for them? If you're good enough, why not just dive into the ring? How do young people dive into the ring without getting a quota or getting space open? So it seems like a bit of a...
Yeah, right?
Yes.
The truth of the matter remains that with the unofficial quota system that we work with. It's not signed into constitution about this zoning or no zoning. You know, I think Africa generally, it is high time we start setting our priorities right in terms of who we choose to lead us or to run us. Zone or no zone, notwithstanding. If we have someone who is competent. Now, that's not to say that across whatever zone that we say, okay, now I think 2023, everybody's talking about Southerners. Like, okay, is it turn for Southerners to actually run the country? Are we saying that across the South, we're not going to see someone who is competent enough to actually run? I don't believe so. Even if it is zone to the north, I know that there are bright northerners that can actually run Nigeria better, all right? Just because someone was saying something during the week that as it is in Nigeria today, we cannot attack politics from the way we envision Nigeria to be. We have to see it from the way it currently is. We get into the system and we now start talking about to change the narrative and see how we can start building the Nigeria of our dream. The truth of the matter is that, I mean, we saw it play out rather in 2019. You know, with all the clamoring, with all the, we want youth, we want this, we want that. The Not to Run to Young bill led by the Yaga, that's Sami Todo and Miriam Lau, she was still new. It was signed to law and we have young people come. We had the advantage, you know, for us to actually take power and start seeing how we can start correcting some of these policy limitations, you know, that we have in engaging young people. But we lost it, actually, because we don't have a united front. It's not, you know, youth participation in politics generally in Nigeria, like I say, is short-termed, is issue-based, and is largely unorganized, you know, because if there is no problem, issue-based, if there are no issues, if somebody does not die, if there's no issue, youth will not rise up to say we want this. It's short-term because, you know, if we had been able to sustain the energy we brought into the October 2020 protests, you know, that we had, I'm still in my 30s, I mean, coming to late 30s, since I've been involved in, you know, whatever it is that is happening in Nigeria today, that's like the largest mobilization of young people that I've ever witnessed. But it's short-term. After 2020, what happened? You know, so I believe that there is just a need for us as young people to get involved. Zoning or no zoning, there is a need for us to actually come together to start saying, we start looking at merit-based leadership and not necessarily the zone. Zones might be important, you know, for the existing political structure that we have in Nigeria until we're able to get involved in policy making and, you know, change the narrative.
I want to talk about party politics now, and that is a very big one for a lot of people. You know, like you said, with the Not Too Young to Run bill being passed in 2019, one of the biggest conversations was, okay, how do young people get into the game? There was a lot of third forces that were established, you know, that came on. We had all of these parties here and there. There was even a suggestion about young people forming their own party called the Youth Party. I don't know that it necessarily had an effect because we ended up finding out at the end of it that the best way, at least at the time, to get power is to infiltrate, for want of a better word, one of these other parties, and which is what I want to talk about now, and let us understand how this infiltration is supposed to work and if it's actually the best route. We're joined now by Pro Tem Chairman of Movement of the People. Thank you very much, Sheon Kutu, for being here today. And I want to direct this question to you now, because the third force is something that's talked about a lot, and I know something you also like to talk about. And Banky W has been a talking point in the last couple of days. He ran for office in 2019 under a third force party. We hear now that he's a member of the PDP and he's going to be running in that party. Realistically speaking, it seems like a smart move. Young people tend to frown at things like this. What are your thoughts on how, you know, you infiltrate these parties to get into the system at least?
Well, first and foremost, you know, let me use this medium to congratulate Banky on his move, but to also say, we're done. We're done. I, as the Pro Tem Chairman, I left my house in Ikeja, packed all my best books, went to toast Banky W.
With your for your party. Okay, so your problems are different.
We're done. You call me for another part. I am waiting. You know, that being said, I think, you know, Yoruba people have an adage that is very interesting here. It's Onokon Waja, meaning there's no one route to get to the market, right? But my way doesn't have to be the best way. It doesn't have to be everybody's way. You know, politics is a game of opinions. I believe, though, that we as young people cannot build anything great sitting down with the people that have destroyed Nigeria. There's nothing they have to offer. And we cannot play, they say we are looking for power. We're not looking for that power. Yeah, they have power, but they have power is wide.
So what power are you looking for?
We are looking for real people power, not tyrannical power. You understand? The only power we can get working with the people that are controlling Nigeria now in their so-called big parties, because that's what they're just big parties, Because somebody told me it's because they have structure. I said, well, looking at APC convention, what it took for them to get there, that is not, there's no structure there, So we can only sit down with these people, these big parties, and play their game. In this case, there's no infiltration. The government will say, I change things from the inside. I would say, name one time in history of humanity. It's not African history, which is the oldest history, by the way. Let's not be bragging. But
so you think it's an impossible move?
No, all of man's history. When has change ever come from within?
There would also be the argument that when in some of the biggest democracies in the world, where has a third force ever achieved anything?
Yeah, I mean, many of the changes in the world has been so-called third force. But me, I don't even believe in third force. Third force is elitist. It sounds like a group of well-educated, rich people that don't like what is going on now, wanting to carry themselves to one side and say, we are giving you the third option. No. This is not, I'm not saying third force. I'm saying the people have always organized. The Labour Party in England, that is probably the second biggest party, still fighting for the people. It was called Third Force when it was formed in the 70s, to fight for welfareism for the people and things like that. So change must always come from without. We, the people, must be able to find validation in our own ability to build the Nigeria we want to see from scratch. These people have failed. Except we want to, continue to make it seem as if there's something they are doing that we don't know. But we all know,
Do you think the youth, that word is so vague now, because
exactly.
I don't even know where the age category is anymore.
Because, at 40, we are still youth. I say, what?
Do you think young people are hungry enough that when you hear what he's saying, that people should actually be the ones holding that power? When you have conversations with young people, do you feel that people are hungry enough? Apathy has crept in on so many levels, whether it's because of how elections have always turned out in Nigeria, whether it's October 2020, there's just a certain sort of, you can feel it amongst people who are just like, what will change? Do you get that, or do you still see hunger?
The truth of the matter is that I feel Sean's passion, and I see the passion of several other people online. But see, when it comes to politics, I deal with the grassroots. I work at the grassest of the roots, I understand something, For Sean is passionate about, let's create the change. An average person who is going to vote is passionate about, let me feed my stomach. I'm telling you the truth. So the truth of the matter is that people are hungry. They want the change. But how are we going to get to that change is a journey, is a process, right? The average politician today will still weaponize poverty, to buy the votes of people because people just want to survive. I agree with Sean to a large extent. So I believe that, yes, a lot people are hungry for change, but the people that we are talking about that can deliver this change is in the numbers, They don't see what we see. They don't feel the passion. All they want to do is they want to survive. And so a lot of people have become Esau, selling birthright for immediate gratification. So if we want to go the route Sean is talking, it's a long-term route. I like the fact that is it
really though? I mean, we've seen, with all the pockets of what we see across the country now, though violent, you can sense something. Maybe the channeling is different, or how it's sort of, I don't know.
I tell you, Buka, I see...
There's an obvious impatience across the country,
It is. The impatience is there. But when we come to reality, right? I was talking to one of the guys running for House of Representative in 2023, and currently he's in House of Assembly in Lagos State, and I spoke to him about empowerment. You need to do something for your people, something like that. He said, okay, forget about empowerment. My people understand beer and rice. If I give to them. He was so sure, he was telling me so confidently that my heart broke, right? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that even if it's not long term, if we are looking at 2023, we are late. We have missed the bus. You know, I was hoping that 2020, like when we had the October 2020 incidents and we were able to put ourselves together, I was hoping that we were able to form a force continually and build on it. Sheung comes up and every other person gets buy-in from every other influential people, and we begin to mobilize at the grassroots.
Sheung, do you think that was a lost opportunity? Do you think anything will be different about 2023?
Well, okay, that's two questions. Okay, real quick. 2020 lost opportunity, not really, because it was not standing on that footing.
Yeah.
It was an end-SARS movement, you know. And I feel we as Nigerian people, you know, emotions drive us a lot. And end-SARS was something driven purely by emotions, not strategy. Oh, police is killing us. Let's attack the police, you know, not the root causes. So Nigerians have to be interested in really facing the root causes of issues, not the symptoms. You know, like some weeks ago when people were shouting, oh, cultism killed one boy in school, oh, young people are doing rituals. Even right now that you say, oh, people care about their stomach when they vote. It's not when we vote we care about our stomach. You see, the reason why poor people sell their votes is because journalists sell their words, judges sell their decisions. I'm telling you, bankers sell their loans to their best friends. Everybody sells, you know, and the poor people see this. So this is their own opportunity to gain from the system. Why should I not? Trust me, if we, the professionals, have played our part, we didn't take bribe to write words in newspaper. We did not help them in the civil service to carry legal files all over the place and help corruption and money laundering in the banks and all the things we do that get all the way to the people that make sure that they are impoverished in the first place. Trust me, they will not. Because when we act like it is the poor people that sell their votes, we lie. Poor people are influenced by what we do. They believe in us more than they believe in the government. I'm telling you, if I go somewhere and I say something, Tinubu goes somewhere and say something, if you go there and take a secret poll, maybe they wouldn't want to say it, but say, who did you believe, Sheung or Tinubu just spoke? The people say, oh, we believe Sheung is more, like, because nobody trusts Nigerian politicians. So we know that it is not because people are that way. We've given them no option. And until we give Nigerian people true option, where we've politicized them, as you said, in the grassroots, being able to mix with the people. I've been to, not only in Lagos, I've gone to Onitsha, Oka, been to Kaba, in Kogi. I've been to, we just got our office in Abuja, so we have to go there for everybody, all the neck of MOP to come together, you know, in the process of our registration. You know, so I've been to a lot of places and I understand that Nigerians aren't as simple as we think. They know. They just don't want to be engaged. There's nothing, you know, they're tired of choosing between a rock and a hard place or the devil and the deep blue sea. We, the professionals of Nigeria, have been given this opportunity. I keep saying it. We are not so special. We are the ones. Trust me, and this is spiritual. This is my own spirituality. Let me share it on your show. We are the ones that asked our ancestors. And that's why we are blessed. That's why we are giving all these extra resources. You know, and that's why the world spends so much of its effort distracting us, you know, with twerking and all this nonsense. I'm telling you, they spend billions to distract us. We are hard to distract. Billions is billion-dollar industry every year to just distract us. Anyway, we are the ones that told our ancestors that send us back to avenge you. That's what we said. Send us. We are the ones. So they say, I take all these things and go back. So we're able to rise above this oppression and see front. And our duty is not to just stay there and say, fresh air, life is good. No, it's our duty to now look behind and bring our people up. We are the only ones that can create this platform. The poor people of Nigeria can never have the time and the resources to organize, to liberate themselves. We are the ones. And we drop the ball every time when we align with the people that oppress us. We drop the ball.
Are you still going to run for office?
No, I'm still going to be MOP chairman, but I will inspire a lot of people that will run for office.
You had changed your mind.
No, because...
But we need to go.
Okay, no problem.
To go, unfortunately.
No problem.
Thank you very much, guys. I mean, honestly, a lot of what you guys have said is true. There's no denying the fact of what is really ahead of us and what's realistic. So, fingers crossed. I think our fingers have been crossed for too long, Sha.
Yeah, no, this is the time. Our people have woken up. We've started the journey.
Yeah.
We've started the journey. It's a long journey.
We're on the right path.
We'll take a break now and be right back. Please stay with us.
Just
All right, welcome back. We're going to be talking insecurity in Nigeria. Like I said at the top of the show, the past week has been a very heavy one for Nigerians across the country. So much has happened, but I think Kaduna State has been at the top of the news. That doesn't mean that the Southeast and the South-South and the Southwest haven't been having their fair share of what has been a very, very trying and disturbing week with regards to security here in Nigeria. We're joined now in our Abuja studios by two guests who will be helping us dissect this. Retired Captain Bish Johnson, who's a security expert, and Murtala Abdullahi, who's a journalist. Thanks a lot for joining us. Let me start with you, Captain Johnson. The issue of Kaduna has been quite talked about, but we still don't seem to have answers. We still have people missing. There's a lot of talk, even from the Minister of Transport, who talked about how this could have been prevented. You know, it almost looks like every time we have an incident like this, there's always a talk of should have, would have, could have. Why are we 7 years after this administration promised to put security at the top of its agenda, still talking about what could have been with regards to keeping Nigerians safe?
Thank you, Ebuka, for having me. Look, this type of things happen. They are not unique to Nigeria. They are not peculiar to Nigeria. You know, in 2004, there was Madrid's train station bombing. In 2005, similar thing happened in the UK. But the difference between all those places and us is that, look, something happens, they learn lessons from it, and they look for answers and remedies for those problems. You know, we saw with the kidnapping of Chibok girls, one would have thought that after that kidnap, we would have learned great lessons and tried to put measures in place to prevent similar occurrences of such incidents. But that didn't happen. We saw kidnap of several other schoolgirls. So that is the problem in Nigeria. It seems to be a culture that we have to allow things to happen and deteriorate to that level of where we lose lives, impact our economy before we can take action. It's not that these things don't happen. The thing is that when they happen in other places, they take actions to fix them. But if it happens here, we do nothing. Or we prolong, you know, the necessary steps that we are supposed to take to remedy those situations. Train system, land transportation system, they are always very vulnerable. They're vulnerable because they're extensive, and people always have access to them. They're made in such a way that people can always have access to them. And like I said, they're extensive, and because of that, they are very vulnerable to the terrorist attacks like the one we saw in Kaduna State. And so they're always very vulnerable. And because they're vulnerable and they're that massive, they cost a lot of resources to be able to remedy. But look, no amount of money should be too big for us to secure the lives of our citizens, protect our investments. Because what has happened now with this train incident in Kaduna State is that it has put the success of that investment and our ability to recoup, to get the returns of our investment in jeopardy. Because now people will be scared to take train, and because they're scared to take train, it will be affecting the revenue that is supposed to be coming to the federal government. And because the revenue is affected, the economy is affected. That's why we should have taken every measure, no matter what it takes, to put in all the safety measures in place to prevent something like that from happening because of the consequences of incidences like that, what it has, the impact it will have on our citizens, the impact it will have on our economy, and the impact it will have in the country generally. Kaduna State, there are only 3 ways you can travel to Kaduna State. You go by air, or you go by road, or you go by train. Train before now seemed to be the safest because going by road is very difficult. And because of the short distance between Abuja and Kaduna, you know, is not always very feasible for people to fly. So, and that one that has been safe is the one that has experienced this attack now. So how do you travel from Abuja to Kaduna? It becomes a big question. That is why the country must spare no resources to remedy the situation, put all the safety measures in place. The technologies are there. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is to look at what other people have done and copy those things and put them in place, and we'll be able to secure the system.
Let me come to you now, Murtala, because I mean, you're a journalist. I want to believe you have a picture of how things have been going with regards to this particular part of our lives. It seems like every government in the last couple of years, at least, that has been in power, seems to talk about how security or insecurity in Nigeria is politicized. You know, whether it's the PDP or the APC, we tend to hear them say our enemies are trying to fester this. Election season is around the corner. They want us out the way. It almost seems like they try to tie, you know, these things with politics. We also hear sometimes they say, oh, we know the people behind these things. Why are these issues still festering? Why are we still at a point where politics, if security is so politicized, does it mean the politicians are guilty? What's your take on all of this? It's really just disheartening that people die and we talk about politics with it.
Thank you, Abuja, for having me. In fact, when you said disheartening, that's what describes the situation that we are. There is little value for human life, and it's entirely within the political system. You can see the conversation that has been happening after the March 28 attack on the Kaduna train. There is little or no updates from the government. The perpetrators have not been identified or made public by the government. There is no crisis room in place to support families. There is no crisis room for transparency and accountability. The Nigerian public have been left in darkness. This shows how we value human life in Nigeria. There is still no number on the actual number of people adopted. So it's really, really sad. So when we look at what happened in Kaduna, it's a microcosm of an entire issue around insecurity in Nigeria. So first, it shows lapses within the security architecture of this country, lapses within intelligence cycle. Why did this incident happen? Why was it not prevented? Why was it not disrupted at the point that it was being implemented? Because there will have been a lot of mobilization of logistics and support equipment to conduct that attack. Why they did not raise the dust and security forces get to intervene? Probably somewhere, someone within the system charged with the job to detect this kind of threat actually did, but because of certain issues within the system, that has not been, the follow-up action did not take place. And it also shows the fact that we never learn, we refuse to learn, even when we have very, very disheartening lessons. In October 2021, there was an incident on the same track that should have led to really reforms and also setting in place mechanisms to prevent it from happening. And one of those mechanisms was actually deterrence. The state actors did not put in place sufficient deterrence to prevent the incident from happening. And that's why the terrorists responsible for the attack had the opportunity to carry out a more bolder, a more deadly attack because there was no deterrence. And then thirdly, we have failed to tackle the complex crisis in the Northwest. There's been knee-jerk reaction. Today we are sending troops, we are conducting airstrikes, we want to bomb them out, but we are not addressing the stressors of the problem, neither are we going after the actors, that's the perpetrators of these heinous crimes. When the government designated them as terror groups, there's virtually no names. It was just a blanket designation of as terror groups, but there's actually no names of the perpetrators, their areas of operations, and their modus of operandi. That way, we know that Mr. ABC are terrorists because of the actions they have taken in the Northwest. Secondly, there is a disorganized and lack of unified response to the crisis in the Northwest. One state is doing this, the other state is doing that. The federal government is just there taking a passive stance, and all they want to do is to conduct airstrikes and think the solution will be solved. We have seen the crisis mutated over years. It wasn't this violent and deadly some few years back. There's a reason why it's mutating. There's a reason why it's becoming deadly. So, across the world, when 9/11 happened in the US, it led to a lot of reforms, especially in terms of how the intelligence community worked there, in terms of also homeland security. But over here, we have a lot of incidents that should have led to institutional reforms, strengthening of the security system, addressing of both stressors of that are fueling conflict, but that does not happen. We hope that it will happen now after the Kaduna train incident. We should not just, there's been a lot of conversation about deploy technology, deploy technology. Technology is not a magic tool. It has to be part of a holistic, unified, surgical approach to solving the crisis.
You know, a lot of what you said there is really just hitting the nail on the head. And I want to come to you now, Captain Johnson, because, I mean, you are a security expert. Maybe you can help us understand this. Like Murtala said there, we have had these incidents go on for years now. We still don't seem to have a face or a name or anything. We've never even really had anyone arrested to say that, okay, these are the people who are perpetrating this. Is this an indictment on our security agencies? How complex is this issue? That, like I said, 7 years into this administration, we still don't seem to have a face of what we used to call bandits who have now become terrorists, who are perpetrating all of this, and we don't even know who they are. How is that possible?
Well, it's possible because I have to agree with the things that my brother here is saying. Look, what is happening in Nigeria is that most things that we do in this country is politicized. And security is one of those things that is equally politicized, like everything else is politicized. There is a religious part of it. You have ethnicity involved. And so nobody is actually doing things for the national interest without looking at, you know, what tribe they come from, what political party they belong, and how do they win the next election. And so when you address national issues based on those bases, you're not going to get it right. You saw the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, same day he was heaping praises on this administration, that look, that the security situation in the country now is better than what it was in 2015. It was the same day that we have this train attack. So politicians want to win election. Because they want to win election, instead of doing the right thing, they will do the things that help them to win the election. But after you win the election, what next? You win the election to serve the people. And part of serving the people is to protect their lives and their property, which, by the way, is the basic function of government. Look, the problem is complicated. I'm not going to put all the problems on the current administration because even the previous administrations and the ones before them failed to take the necessary step that they were supposed to take. Nations are not built overnight. Nations are built gradually, one after the other. You come, you play your role. The next person comes, they build upon the one that you did, and it continues like that. So, but because we failed to do what we were supposed to do in the yesteryears, we created a massive gap. And so those gaps, we take very radical measures to be able to close them. And one of those gaps is in terms of our security architecture. The number of policemen we have in the streets, the kind of training that they get, you know, their funding, how much of that funding actually gets down to them. Corruption equally plays a part in what we are witnessing now, because even when you appropriate funds for certain things to be done in this country, those funds don't make it to where they're supposed to make it. And so the things that is supposed to be done, we don't get it done. If you look at, we are calling for reforms. Now, if we agree to reform, the reform is going to cost money, right? And if the people who are supposed to carry out those reforms, funds are appropriated, and instead of using those funds to do those reforms, they pocket them, the reforms are not going to be adequately done. So they will be done haphazardly, and then those lapses and those gaps that allow these terrorists to take advantage of the vulnerabilities will still be taking place. So the solution to our problem is very, very holistic. We have to look at all of everything, including, but not limited to restructuring. Restructuring almost every aspect of our life, because all these things are interwoven and interconnected. Okay. So you cannot solve one problem in isolation of the other. You have to look at all these things holistically by taking the issue of corruption seriously, looking at how we reform and rejig our security architecture, because we need more boots on the ground. Okay. If you go to other places, even the Kaduna state government and the FCT could have been able to build a network of security that would have been tight enough to prevent such an attack on a rail system that emanated from Abuja to Kaduna. But there is no such thing as state police. Our governors answer, you know, chief security officers of their states, but in reality, they don't have control over any of the security architecture. They will have to, you know, work with the federal security architecture to be able to actually carry out the functions that they're supposed to carry out.
Sorry, thank you very much. Let me quickly go to Morsala before we go now, because I just want to find out, we live in a country where, you know, copycats copycatism is almost like our reality. We see how Boko Haram festered. You know, it starts with one attack, people see that it works, and it becomes a thing, you know. There's a lot of worries now about what this can become across the country. Also, we know how election season sadly is across the country, and how violence seems to start picking up once, you know, campaigns start getting heated. We saw Anambra State, for example, in the lead up to the elections, how pretty deadly it was until the election day with the governorship. How worried should Nigerians be? You know, there's already a lot of apathy with regards to coming out to vote. Is this a trend that we should be worried about, you think?
Should be worried, and this should really lead to institutional changes to strengthen the security forces. Copycat is a huge problem, especially it's one of the main reasons why kidnapping for ransom has become an epidemic across Nigeria, and especially in the Northwest. Until the state is able to form sufficient deterrence, punish perpetrators of crime, and also what we really need to know is the fact that what we are seeing in the Northwest, it's a pipeline, it's a product of several factors, and we need to address the underlying drivers. Why are actors behaving the way they are? That has to be solved, either in terms of social injustice, poor law enforcement capacity in rural communities, lack of local governance, and then we also need to punish people for the crime. So it's a combination of justice, social justice, the criminal justice system, law enforcement reform, governance, everything, as he earlier stated. It's a needed problem, and we need to solve all the several components.
How do we do that, though?
It has to start with the political will to reform the system, political will to strengthen local governance, especially, for me, I feel local government is a matter of national security. Allowing local governments to be strong, to be able to meet the needs of the people. When we do that, there will be a lot of reduction in terms of vulnerability and drivers for conflict and crisis across Nigeria. Secondly, we need to strengthen the criminal justice system. So there's a lot of conversation about why is it that we don't see bandits getting, or the so-called bandits getting sanctioned in court. The part of the problem is the lack of evidence. So you need to also have a strong law enforcement capabilities to gather evidence, sufficient evidence that when you get to court, the judge has no other option but to prosecute someone for the offense he has committed. People get to manage kidnapping individually as a family. There is no lead agency, there is no lead framework that ensures that the state knows who are perpetrators of kidnapping, so that when they get arrested, they can be prosecuted. So there has to be reforms, really. We need governance reform. And instead of state policing, I think that one area that the policing is an architecture in itself, and does not lie with the police alone. So when you provide social governance, it's a form of reducing vulnerability that leads to security crisis in the future.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I know a lot of us are very worried. A lot of Nigerians have been asking questions. Where does this leave us, you know, with regards to 2023 and the elections? One thing that should be paramount in our minds, though, is that security should be a huge talking point with regards to whoever we decide to vote for, whoever is campaigning for votes, because it literally is at the crux of the matter, as we can see it now. I mean, the paramount duty of government is to secure lives and keep us safe, and it's looking like things are slipping away, unfortunately. But thank you very much for joining us from Abuja Studios. We'll take a break now and come back. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. If you're Nigerian or even African or anywhere around the world, you know that Nigerian music is literally taking the world by storm. There's so much happening in that space, and we're going to be talking about that right now. I'm joined now from Abuja Studios by Osato Edokbai, who's a media personality. EDK, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a big day for Nigeria, first of all. The Grammys are happening tonight. Probably the most nominations we've ever had in the history of the Grammys. There's Femi Kuti, there's Burna Boy, there's Whiskey, there's Thames, and there's Made Kuti. 5 Nigerians are on the bill tonight. Nervous, excited? Who do you think is going to be snagging an award tonight?
I'm very excited. I think it's an amazing time, like you've mentioned, for Nigerian music, African music, really. If I were to hedge my bets, I mean, Whiskey definitely seems to get one. He's in 2 categories. Look, Angelique Kidjo also has 2 nominations, and she's won it 4 times already. It's really hard to bet against the legend. But I think 1 for sure for Wiz. But, you know, big ups to the legend Femi Kuti as well as his son Made Kuti. And Burna's already won. I think it'll be cool if he lets this one go for sure. He's nominated alongside Angelique Kidjo for as a feature on her track as well. So exciting times, really. I'm super psyched.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is Femi's, I think, third or fourth nomination. But I mean, there are people who also say, oh, you know, are the Grammys really the benchmark for excellence? You know, is this something we should be that excited about? Why is this that important, you know, for us to pay attention to moments like this?
The Grammys are a music award ceremony of global repute. I know that people say, look, awards are just what they are, the awards. But look, when you've worked so hard as an artist or in any profession, really, it's really nice to get some sort of recognition. And if you're getting recognized by easily one of the biggest award ceremonies in the world, I know it's American, I know it's going to be in Las Vegas later tonight and so on, but it's a big deal. And there have been various Nigerian artists in the past who have sung endlessly about copying one of those Grammy trophies. So I think it's a huge achievement for any artist. I know that it's not easily the benchmark for excellence, but I think for any artist, you know, worth their salt, it's sort of a big deal. And I don't think anybody should say it isn't in any way. I think a lot of the artists who are nominated are very excited and very proud of their nominations. And I think a lot of artists still on the come up look forward to the day where their names will be discussed amongst Grammy nominees.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all going to be awake tonight, hoping to watch the moment when it happens. Definitely rooting for all the Nigerians there. But like outside of the Grammys, like I said, there's so much happening, you know. CK is in the news every day, you know. His subscription numbers on YouTube are mind-blowing. He's literally on everyone's lips across the world. Every American or British person you meet, or even non-English speaking countries seem to have his song note for notes, you know. He's going crazy with Love Wants It. Then, of course, there's Davido, who literally just copped the official song for the FIFA World Cup, the biggest sporting event in the world. There's just so much happening at this time. What changed for Nigerian music to get us here? What suddenly happened? What's different?
Just the quality of production and the quality of music making changed. I mean, the evolution has been something to watch since the mid-2000s to now. Looking at what the guys at the Mo Hits did over time and what other artists and producers have been doing over time, it's been a long journey. I mean, we've had other artists on international platforms and international stages do us very proud as well. And it was obviously only a matter of time. If we have people like Wiz, Burna, and Davido who've been at the top of the game for over 10 years and counting, and still trying to hold off the rest of the pack coming after them. And you have younger guys, like you mentioned, CK, there's Omale, there's all these guys who are now snagging international collaborations. It just shows that we've grown as a music industry. There's a bit more structure. I mean, the majors are now here and so on. I still think there's still a lot of work to be done. It's work in progress, obviously, but I think the Nigerian sound is de facto going to be global pop music in a while. I mean, people call it Afro-pop, people call it Afro-beats, but you see every artist, what they're sold elsewhere is trying to, you know, get a pinch of us. You know, they're featuring CK, they're featuring Omale, they're trying to get a Davido feature. It used to be the other way around, if you remember. So I think it's just how artists are taking their craft a little more seriously, how people who work with the sound as well have evolved in the, and made sure that our sound is competitive globally. And it's such a proud moment for all of us, I see. Even the rest of Africa is jealous of us as Nigerians, and it shows the amount of work that we're putting in. I'm so proud of what we're doing.
I mean, that's why we're getting accused of not pulling some countries up, but let's not mention any names. But I want to talk, you mentioned structure there, and I wonder what structure looks like these days. You know, in the past, you know, you had to release an album, you know, go through all the marketing and look for some distribution deal and all of that. These days, you just need to go viral on TikTok and you're a huge star. You know, so what is structure like today, and how does that fit into the Afrobeat setting?
It's a very interesting question. Structure today, obviously, you would need some sort of big label support if you want to go global in any case. I mean, what happens now is a lot of people look out for artists who are industrious on their own. So they're going to manage themselves, go viral on TikTok and all these other social media platforms. They get big numbers, and then the majors will swoop in and say, okay, let's take it from here now and make you a global star. But it's not a done deal yet. I think some people are still at the risk of being exploited, so we have to be careful with that. But structure means that there's some budget for marketing now. There's some budget for, you know, producing better albums. There's access now to global studios, and just the global pool of talent is more accessible to a Nigerian artist who's hardworking enough and gets noticed by the people who matter. And to me, that's very important. I only think it really gets better. And yes, TikTok is such a major music player now, isn't it? I mean, if you have a viral TikTok song, you're instantly going to get mad numbers. But the thing is, we also look need to look at sustenance. Beyond one viral TikTok moment, what do you need to do to sustain your growth? So I think that's where artists also need to be careful and also need to plan with their team to make sure that they keep the momentum going.
You just really segued into my very final question as quickly as you can, talking about sustenance now. There's also the argument that this might be a flash moment for Afrobeat. I mean, we saw the Jamaican wave when it happened. Everybody wanted a bite of Sean Paul here and all of that. You know, are we sure this is not just a moment in time that's going to go away, or are we here to stay?
Legitimate fear, Ibuka. It's a legitimate fear, but I strongly believe that it's not. I think that the times are slightly different. I think that there are more Nigerian-born music entrepreneurs who are savvy about music business, who can compete globally with the best music execs in the world. I mean, there's Don Jazzy, there's all sorts of people who know their onions. So I think they're going to look at the business side of things and take care of their business as well and make sure that we're not being exploited for just our sound and just this moment in history, and look at the Afrobeats. Well, I don't want to say Afrobeats wave. I think it's here to stay, and I think that while there's a lot of work to be done, it is possible, and I'm really looking forward to the next 5-10 years of what we're going to do here.
Thank you very much, Osaso Idike. I think all our fingers are crossed, and wishing the best of luck to all our Nigerian superstars who are nominated for the Grammys tonight, and hopefully the doors open to many more things, and maybe we might have an Afrobeats category one day, who knows. Thanks for joining us. All right, like I always say, you can follow the conversation on Twitter. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you send us a message. I'll see you next Sunday.